All right, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, whoa, hold it right there, masked analyst. That mask is too tight for you. It's obviously restricting the blood going to your brain. We can't compare Trevor Rieger to Woodward and Bernstein. And the people who post on YouTube are private citizens who deserve more protection from investigative reporting than the president does. What is done here is not newsworthy and does not deserve the same scrutiny that our high-ranking government officials do. And therefore, reporters in the real world deserve more protection than hacks like Rieger does. Certainly, there is some validity to your point. I do not put Rieger in the same reporting elite as I do Woodward and Bernstein. And what unfolds here is trivial compared to what our high-ranking officials do. But are those who vlog here private citizens worthy of protection from close scrutiny? Should we expect to be protected from having our personal information released, or from being characterized as cheats or whores or crybabies? This is a very complex subject with no easy answer. I think it comes down to a case-by-case basis. For example, the average person who just posts about how their day went or makes up some funny skit should be considered a private person and should not be subject to close, intense scrutiny. But you open yourself up to more and more scrutiny as you become more popular. That is the price of fame. In addition, what we do here can make us highly newsworthy. For example, if someone posted a death threat directed toward another YouTube user, then don't you think that person is worthy of close scrutiny? Don't you think that releasing their name would be fair game, despite the fact that doing so would violate YouTube's terms of service? Now, what if someone made the claim that they were receiving death threats over the phone as a result of their personal information being released on YouTube? Doesn't someone who makes such a claim open themselves up to scrutiny? Shouldn't we be able to look at all their other videos and examine whether or not they have been truthful in the past, or whether they have a history of telling whoppers? And if there's evidence of someone gaming the system by using an auto-refresher or having dozens or hundreds of fake subscribers, don't you think that that makes them worthy of public scrutiny? Or if you pretend to be someone you are not, do you think you should be protected from exposure? Do you think it was okay for people to question Lonely Girl 15's authenticity? And if people have the right to question her authenticity, then doesn't Trevor have the same right to lay out the evidence that he has in exposing Dax's flame? Now, let's take a look at the section of the Terms of Service Agreement that you cited a little bit more closely. You further agree that you will not submit material that is defamatory, libelous, threatening, harassing, hateful. The trouble with this wording is that it is so nebulous. What exactly is hate speech? I know for a fact that some Muslims have been flagging videos that have been very critical of Muslims, perhaps even hostile. One of them wrote to me that they only flagged hate speech. The problem is, what is considered hate speech by some may be absolutely essential for the rest of us to view. I'm providing a link to Michelle Malkin's video, First They Came. This video has been flagged and removed a number of times. Now, I don't know for a fact that it was some Muslim who was flagging it, but that would be my guess. And I can see why Muslims would find it offensive, because this video doesn't state that many Muslims are peaceful. Muslims might find that this video unfairly portrays their religion or their people. But the video never said that every Muslim was a terrorist, or that even most Muslims are terrorists. I do not view this video as hate speech. In fact, I would view it as essential speech, because it drives home the reality that the greatest threat to the freedoms we face in the West come from Islamic extremists. It is a lesson that we forget at our own peril. Do you think YouTube should be pulling down videos such as this on the grounds that they are hate speech? Let's look at the other provision of the TOS agreement that you cited. You further agree that you will not publish falsehoods or misrepresentations that could damage YouTube or any third party. Now, a close reading of this clause implies that YouTube will let you publish true and factual information about YouTube even if it damages them or a third party. If they didn't want people to post criticism of YouTube or third parties, then they would have, and they should have written, "You further agree that you will not publish anything negative or remotely critical about YouTube or any third party. Even if you have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, thou shalt not publish it here." We are Happy Land, and the Potemkin village must not be questioned. Do not look at the man behind the curtain. Since YouTube did not put this in the toss, I think we can conclude that it will allow criticism based on the truth. But what if a reporter makes an honest mistake? What if he really thinks he has solid evidence proving questionable behavior on YouTube's part or the part of a third party? What if it turns out that his assessment is wrong, or if he is missing something in his evaluation? Should YouTube banish him forever for publishing a false statement that could damage YouTube or a third party? I think we have to look at this on a case-by-case basis. Adopting a blanket one-size-fits-all policy of automatically banning anyone who makes a false and hurtful statement could produce unnecessary and unhealthy self-censorship. New York Times versus Sullivan is the mother of all legal cases dealing with libel law. I'm posting a link to it in the sidebar. I'm also bending a key passage from it and adopting it to this situation that is before us. I will paste a copy of the unbastardized version in the sidebar as well. Now here's what my altered version of what Justice Brenner said in this important case. Okay, my altered version is: a rule compelling the critic of YouTube or her fellow YouTubers to guarantee the truth of all her factual assertions, and to do so under pain of permanent account deletion and banishment, leads to self-censorship. More than just false speech will be deterred. Under such a rule, would-be critics of misconduct may be deterred from voicing their criticism, even though they believe it to be true, and even though it is, in fact, true, because of doubt whether they can prove to the gods of YouTube the accuracy of their assertions. They tend to make only statements which steer wide of the unlawful zone. At this point, I can hear you raising two objections. First objection: masked analyst, you have the worst presentation on YouTube, and you're a windbag who drones on and on and on. They ought to force the prisoners at Guantanamo to listen to you, and that'll make them talk. To this I can only plead guilty as charged. Sorry about that. Second, New York Times versus Sullivan is all about the First Amendment right to criticize public officials and has no relevance to whether a private company can censor its users. And in any case, YouTube users may be private citizens, so YouTube has a right, even a duty, to protect them from slander. As I've already mentioned, whether or not those who post on YouTube are public figures or private citizens is a complex issue that hasn't worked its way through the court system yet. I think the key deciding factor would be whether or not a user's behavior thrusts himself into a controversy. And if you took this position, you would be absolutely right. YouTube does not have to act as a guarantor of our First Amendment rights. It has every legal right to censor everything and anything we say. But this would not be in YouTube's best interest, and I hope that the folks at YouTube are smart enough to realize this. Blunty, we might not agree on much, but I'm very much like you in that I want to see YouTube survive and thrive. Where we differ is that I fear that any excessive censorship on YouTube's part could be the greatest long-term threat to its survival. Why do I say this? Several reasons. As I mentioned, when YouTube censors someone, they may unintentionally give that person an air of respectability. That person then becomes a martyr for free speech, and users may be turned off by YouTube's heavy-handedness and migrate to other places. Second, those who get censored by YouTube do not just disappear into nothingness. Sometimes they make up new accounts, and sometimes they go elsewhere on the web or the news media media to tell their tale. Even if there is a perfectly legitimate reason to punish a user, such as for copyright infringement, permanent banishment can only generate negative publicity for YouTube. If you have the time, you might want to take a look at my videos discussing the Nick Gisburn affair. Then take a look at the sidebar to a link I'm posting to a video by Michelle Malkin. Pay very close attention to the comments at the bottom of her video. YouTube's heavy-handed censorship has earned them some very bad press, and Michelle Malkin has very good connections with the press. She was a frequent guest on the Bill O'Reilly show, so if she really wants to give YouTube bad publicity, she certainly has a platform to do so. And the more YouTube censors, the more people it will piss off, and the worse YouTube's reputation will become. And this brings us to the final reason why YouTube should be doing everything in its power to avoid getting a bad reputation for censorship. I have put a link in the sidebar to a video made by Ron, a copyright lawyer from Washington, D.C. I strongly urge everyone to watch that video. It is absolutely essential to watch this video to understand why gaining a reputation for censorship could be YouTube's Achilles heel. As Ron discusses, YouTube is being sued by Robert Turr for promoting copyright infringement. Now, I hope YouTube wins the suit, and I think they will win the suit. But Ron mentioned that the Supreme Court ruled against Grokster because it viewed it as a bad actor and was not worth saving. He contrasted Grokster's behavior with YouTube's by saying that, and I'm quoting here, he said that YouTube is trying to act responsibly and by providing an easy, free, effective way for regular people to publish video to the world, YouTube is providing a service that is consistent with some of the most fundamental principles and values of the U.S. Constitution, freedom of speech, and promotion of the useful arts. I want to see YouTube survive just as much as you do, Blunty, but YouTube could jeopardize this case if it gets a reputation of being a heavy-handed censor. YouTube has every legal right to censor what is on its site, but if it goes overboard, it could end up giving Robert Turr the ammunition he needs to shoot it down in court. Now, I don't want this criticism to be too hard on YouTube. YouTube does have a tough balancing act and a difficult problem in dealing with the haters. I don't want to minimize the haters' problem. It is very real. I think the staff at YouTube are probably good people who are trying to look out for the best interest of YouTube and the majority of its users, and I commend them for doing a very difficult job. But I think they have overreacted in permanently banning Utubedrama. Their attempt to combat the hater problem is admirable, but they have to be careful not to shoot themselves in the foot while doing so. This has been the Masked Analyst. Under and in.